Hello everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Export. This one is very late. We'll chalk it up to a mid-season break, if it was impromptu, shall we say. My job, I'm getting like one day off every 2 weeks at the moment, so it is quite difficult to fit this in. But we're back, we're here, and we're going to chat in this episode to Caitlyn Lubas, who has already travelled to like 70 countries around the world, despite the fact that she's only in her early 20s. And in this episode, we talk about how she managed to do that and the book that she's authored all about those travels. It's a shorter episode, but it's still really cool, and it was really fun to chat to her. So, as per usual, links to things will be in the description. Hope you enjoy the episode, and I hope that it won't be so long until the next episode is released. And we are coming towards the back end of Season 1 now. I think there's only a couple of episodes left after this, unless someone fits in before the end, but I don't think that's going to happen, so we're nearing the end. This has been Season 1. Thank you if you've tuned into any of the episodes. It's been really cool seeing people enjoy the episodes. So, this is Caitlyn Lubas. Enjoy the episode. Hello, Caitlyn Lubas. How are you? Welcome to Export Podcast.
I'm good. How are you?
Not too shabby. We are 2 days from Christmas as of recording. Yesterday, I landed a new job and got my COVID booster. It was a good day. So, could be worse.
Exciting. Congrats.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I'm just bragging on my own podcast. How about that? Before we get into sort of the book and everything and all the traveling, you're a New Jersey resident, is that correct?
Yes, I am born and raised in New Jersey, kind of just outside of New York City. Have moved around quite a lot in the past year or so since then, but I'm back in Jersey with family at the moment for the holidays.
Well, as a resident of New Jersey, I have a very important question for you.
Yeah.
Pork roll or Taylor ham?
Ooh, definitely Taylor ham. I'm a North Jersey girl through and through.
Interesting. See, being a Brit, I had no idea about this whole thing until I was listening to another podcast I really like, and a resident of New Jersey mentioned it in there, and I kind of went into a deep delve of all this. So
it is a hot topic of debate. Definitely.
I've spoken to 3 people now from New Jersey, and I've had 2 votes for Taylor ham and 1 for pork roll. So I'm just calling it
clearly winning.
I'm just calling it a Taylor roll and not getting involved. I'm just staying neutral. Anyway, for any listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, do you just want to give a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Caitlyn Lubas. I am a 23-year-old who just published a book, actually exactly a month ago on November 23rd. And my book is called You Are Where You Go. It's about my personal journey of traveling through 70 countries and all 7 continents during the span of my 3.5 years of college.
That's a lot of countries.
Definitely.
What attracted you to traveling in the first place? What made you want to just see everywhere?
Yeah, I think from a young age, I knew I wanted to travel a lot. My dad and my grandpa had been really into traveling as a family with themselves growing up. So I always heard all these amazing stories about my dad got to try eating monkey brains in Morocco and got to go cliff diving in Acapulco and talking about the Great Wall of China and just all of these places that I obviously had heard about in stories and movies and books, but having real people in my life who had actually been there, I think that was a really inspiring catalyst where I was like, okay, this is real. I could go visit these places myself. And then when I got the chance to actually start traveling on my own, kind of saving up my own money, having my own free time once I got to college, I just knew that was something that I really wanted to prioritize. And I feel like college is this kind of great little pocket where you're a little bit independent, but not totally independent, because you still have the structure of school to kind of fall back on. So you can have a lot more free time to do all these trips and just kind of focus on exploring and learning and growing yourself.
I haven't managed to get my hands on the book just yet, but on Amazon, you can do the whole look inside thing. So I've read sort of a good sort of portion of it so far. And the first kind of things you talk about are the 2 big questions. Loads of people want to travel. So many people are like, what do you want to do? I want to go traveling. But it's always, how do I do that? How do I afford it? And when can I do that? And all that sort of stuff. So And for you, I think you talk about how for you it was just a decision. You've just got to go through with it, make that decision. Is that how you approached it then? You were just like, I'm traveling and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to priorities. Like, nothing is really like stopping you from doing anything. And I think that's true for pretty much anything in life. Whether you want to like set out to get a certain type of job or like set out to meet like a certain type of person or like try a certain hobby, like nothing is stopping you besides like your willingness to just work at it. I think that's pretty true for most things. But yeah, definitely like setting that intention of like, I want to prioritize travel. What can I do to make that happen? I think for me, a big part was just making that conscious decision, kind of being willing to make sacrifices in the steps towards that goal, like saving money on eating out, saving money on like going out on the weekends, or just like blowing money all over the place. You can
Yeah.
definitely trim down your budget, make sure that you build up the funds to do travel. And then when you're actually on the trips, like budget travel is like a whole different mode of travel than what most people think. Like, I think the travel industry as a whole tends to be pretty like catered towards showcasing like luxury hotels and
Mm.
resorts and like sitting on a beach. But that definitely wasn't the type of travel I was doing. It was like you are on an overnight bus, you are only packing a backpack, you are eating like whatever the hostel gives you. Like, I was not prioritizing like necessarily the quality of the places or the
But at the same
accommodation.
time, that allows you to really delve into the culture of a place and really get into the nitty gritty and get to know the people there instead of like being in a 5-star box of familiarity, if you get what I mean.
For sure. No, I definitely agree with that. And I prefer traveling like hostel style, like
Mm.
backpacker style. Actually, I feel a little bit far removed from like the actual country if I ever go to like a resort. But yeah, I think that was like one conscious decision, kind of like trying to save money, traveling very cheaply. And then I guess the more of the bigger issue for most people really does come down to having the time to do it. I feel like, especially once you're kind of like in adult life and like on the career path,
Mm.
on the working grind, that's definitely harder. Which is kind of like one of the reasons I definitely advocate for young people to take advantage of like the free time that they have.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not helping myself by the fact that literally today I've bought myself an Xbox Series X, so that's another money for holidays out the window. But it's not like we can go very far anyway at the moment. Closest I'm going to get is Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'll just have to go on there and fly somewhere. But this podcast really, it's less about the traveling from this point of view. My podcast is meant to be about it's a creator's podcast, so you are an author.
Mhm.
So what did you travel with the intention of writing this book?
Not
If you like, or did
initially.
you was that like you were traveling and then at some point you thought I should write a book about this? Was it more that way?
Yeah, so I started really traveling in my first year of university. I did a course actually through my classes that took me to Ghana with like a group trip and my professors. And that was kind of like the first key pivotal abroad experience that I had, because I was like, wow, I never imagined myself visiting Ghana as a kid. Like, that is seemingly very far-fetched and like
Mm.
outlandish. And if I can get here and realize there's so much for me to learn and grow through this kind of very unique travel experience, I just want to put myself in more of these situations so that I can kind of accelerate my personal development over the next couple of years. So after that trip, I did a semester abroad in Italy. Then I did another semester abroad in Singapore the following year. Did a couple like longer winter break trips through Abu Dhabi and Tel Aviv in the Middle East. And I think after I had accrued all of those travel experiences, I was like, I definitely am like above average in terms of how many places I've been, especially at this
Mm.
age. So I kind of had it in my mind that like, yeah, I have all these stories. It's definitely a really unique perspective. Like, maybe I do want to write something one day. Um, so then I graduated university in December of 2019 and had intentions to go on a 7-month trip, just traveling straight for 7 months from January through July of 2020. But obviously, we
Mm-hmm.
all know what happened in 2020, and that was
Oh
probably the
no.
worst year to be
Yeah.
planning a 7-month trip. So that got a little derailed, got halfway through it, but definitely in the midst of those first 3 months, I was like more consciously taking notes, more consciously writing down my thoughts and observations because I knew that I wanted to write something. So yeah, I was able to refer back to those notes, refer back to like all the pictures and kind of like almost like photojournalism I had done
Mm.
during my previous trips to kind of bring back all these stories and memories that made its way into the book.
So you never really intended to be an author from the off. It was just something that happened, and you just thought I should write this down, and hopefully, I'm sure you've inspired people who have picked up your book and thinking, oh yeah, I should go to that place and I should go. You know, I think there's so much reluctance in people to, to just think, oh, should I go or should I save or whatever? But I guess you've only got one life, haven't you? You might as well go.
Yeah. No,
So,
it's been really awesome in the past month or so, just hearing people's reactions, whether
mm,
it's like kind of like a random stranger on the internet reaching out, just like DMing me on Instagram saying they bought the book, or even like really close friends or even distant friends just saying like, yeah, I read the book. I'm really inspired. I want to travel here. I want to like try out the nomadic life that I talk about near the end of the book. I think that's been a really positive experience. And it's basically the way I thought about writing a book was I've had all these amazing conversations with friends or just people kind of one-on-one where people come away being like, yeah, that's really inspiring. I really want to do a similar thing that you've done and go and experience things. But I can't have like a one-on-one conversation with anyone who might want to hear about this kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So I was like, why not just write it down, put it out there? Anyone who's interested and kind of intrigued by this story of like, how have you been able to visit so many places? What is it like to go to places like Antarctica? Just yeah, writing it down is a way to make it more, I guess, scalable and transferable. And even for me and myself, I'm like, I want to have a record of these as well
Yeah,
before
yeah,
like time
absolutely.
gets away from myself.
And it sounds like you've gone through sort of a lot of personal growth during these travels as well. Is that something you took from it?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main things I wanted to focus on in the book itself. It's not necessarily like a travel guide. It's not going to say like, oh, when you go to Vietnam, like do this and this and this. Like that wasn't the goal at all. It was definitely more like intended as a piece of inspiration to say like these are examples of like all the places you can visit. Here's an experience that I had when I was somewhere else. And this at the end is kind of like a lesson that I took away from it or something that I realized about the world, about myself, a new perspective that I otherwise probably wouldn't have gained through travel.
So it's like, don't just travel to see a place, travel for yourself as well. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
you can grow if you go to this place. You know, you can take lessons from how they do things there.
That's definitely the intention. Like the title of the book itself, like you are where
You
you
are where
go.
you go. Exactly.
I do think that's so true. Like everywhere you go really does make up who you are as a person. It makes up your like knowledge, your experience, your perspectives, and the more places and experiences you can expose yourself to, I think you just become a fuller person.
What was the biggest challenge would you say you faced when writing the book? Was it just trying to memorize everything? Was it was it like I was it something like I'm trying to answer your question for you here, but you know, trying to whittle down an experience to just a few words, if you like. You know, I would imagine that would be quite a challenge. But what did you find challenging about the book?
Yeah, I think writing itself it has kind of like a double-edged sword of like you want to be super succinct, get your point across in a
Yeah.
way that is engaging to the reader, but you also want to include enough detail to make it feel like they're there. So I think that was definitely a hard thing to balance because some of my first drafts of the stories were like super long and ended up cutting them down quite a bit. But then other ones were maybe like I thought they were fine enough, but then my editors were able to come in and say like, actually, we'd love to see more details. I'd love to know more about like what this looked like. I'd love to see more dialogue. I think that was one thing that I was able to really grow as a writer is like really understanding how not to just like basically journal entry and tell a story, but like add characters, add dialogue. I think that's something that obviously when you're writing in a school or like a business environment, you're never putting in like dialogue quotes.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think for me, that was like a big learning opportunity to just figure out how to write more descriptive and like engaging to the reader type of writing.
Because it has to be, as you say, it has to be succinct and digestible, but you can't make it dull. You
Yeah.
know, you have to make it engaging, and as you say, give all that detail. Um, Here's a big question. The big question. Do you have a favorite place that you went to?
I definitely do. I really, really liked Antarctica. I feel like that is not what people usually expect. But I have
It's so
been wanting to
unique,
go
isn't it,
there.
though, as a place?
Exactly. I think it just doesn't compare to quite anywhere else. And ironically, before I even went to Antarctica, some of my favorite places that when people would ask me like throughout the years, at first I always used to say like, oh, I loved Alaska. It was so amazing, like the glaciers and just seeing all of that. And then I think a few years after I visited Alaska, I visited Iceland and always that came up in my conversations. And then Antarctica definitely like blows the other two out of the water in terms of the unique landscapes and the animals. Like I love penguins and seals and
Yeah.
whales and getting to see all of them up close and personal in Antarctica was just so, so special.
Because it is a landscape as well, isn't it? Like the Arctic is just a big ice sheet
Mhm.
that's just frozen water. Antarctica is a landmass. You know, it used to be
Yeah.
tropical and it's just covered in all this stuff now. So, but that makes it much more unique as a place to go. And one day there'll be another landmass like Africa, but that'll, I don't know which way the tectonic plates are moving, but maybe that'll go south and become Antarctica, and Antarctica will move and become somewhere else.
Yeah. No,
But
it's
that's
definitely, I was gonna say it's an interesting landscape because no one actually thinks about like, oh, you can go for a hike in Antarctica,
mm,
but like you definitely can.
yeah, and I reckon there'll be a lot of like hidden secrets in amongst the land that right now is buried under 50 meters of snow and ice.
Yeah.
But one day maybe it'll get excavated. Who knows? Um, so of course you visited over 70 countries. That's a hell of a lot. But there's more to go. So where's next on the bucket list, I guess?
Yeah, I had a lot of places that I meant to hit last year on my trip, the 7 month trip that I had planned. So originally I was supposed to do Antarctica, then Argentina and Chile, and like a bit around South America, which I did do. And then I was in the middle of a safari that was starting in Kenya and working its way all down the coast down to South Africa. But that was when COVID kind of really started exploding everywhere. All the borders were closing. So I had to fly home from Zimbabwe. But if my plans had gone according to plan, I would have continued on towards Sri Lanka and Nepal. I would have done a Mount Everest base camp trek. I would have hit up my friends in Australia, done a couple like country hopping trips around Europe to visit friends. So I actually was able to make it back to Europe earlier this year when the borders were open and COVID wasn't so crazy for a hot second back in September.
Mm.
But I definitely think Sri Lanka and Nepal are places that I've been thinking about for so long now since I already had planned it out. So someday when I have like a lot of time to go travel, maybe for like a whole month, would love to go back and hit up that region again. But in the shorter term, like what's more realistic to squeeze in like shorter trips? I think I definitely want to hit up more of Central and South America. There's just so much that I haven't explored, and I think it's really interesting to me that it's a common language, but the cultures are also so different. So
Mm.
definitely really intrigued to check out more of that region.
I suppose Europe's good for travelers like yourself because it is pretty much just open borders. You just get on a train, you can go through like 3 or 4 countries in one day, you know?
Exactly.
So, and like Europe's great for that as well because you can go from the south of France, you know, Mediterranean kind of area, and then hop on a train, and within a few hours, you're in the Alps, and then you can be in Austria. And it's, you know, and I often, you know, I've been from Germany through to Austria and also in the Netherlands a little bit, that sort of side of it. And I find it's really interesting to watch the evolution of cultures where you can spot like the similarities, but also the way they do things in a certain area. Is that something that's sort of always interested you as well? Like the similarities, but those subtle differences that make a place unique.
Yeah, I think Europe is a great example of that. Even like Southeast Asia, like the little pocket of like Vietnam and Laos and Cambodia, like they're all very close in location, but the cultures are so starkly different, especially in terms of the food and the language. But there's also still just general, I guess, viewpoints or like values that are similar across that region. And then, like you were saying in Europe, I think that's more of a case where you go between borders and like life generally feels the same, but there's a very different language, there's very
Yeah.
different food still. And I think that's always so interesting that like if you just hop over a border, the life is so different.
Mm. Have you ever stood in 3 countries at once? Because I have. That was an excellent way.
Yeah, yeah, I actually in where is it? In Iguazu Falls in like the northern part of Argentina, there's a part where there's Brazil and Paraguay and Argentina all come together. So I've been there.
I've been to the exact border between Belgium, Germany, and the Netherlands. And
Hmm.
there's one specific spot. So I was stood, and I can't remember if this is the exact way around it was, but let's just say, like my left arm and my left leg, that was in Germany. My right arm and right leg, that was in Belgium, and then like the torso and my head were in the Netherlands, like all in one moment. That was quite incredible. And it's, you know, I haven't been that far, but even just hopping over the channel from the UK where I am to Germany and just seeing it and be like, it's so different. But
Hmm.
I felt like it enriched me in so many ways. to the point where now I'm trying to learn German
Oh, wow.
just because I think it's good to get an understanding of a language in case I want to go back to Germany or to Austria or to certain parts of Switzerland which also speak German. And also because, frankly, we in the UK don't bother because apparently everyone speaks English. And I just think it'll be a good thing to learn in respect to everyone else who does bother to learn English.
Right. I've always felt that it's a little unfair that we get to have just like this universal language being born in an English speaking country. But yeah, making a conscious effort to learn a different language is always, it goes a really long way. Even if you just know like a couple sentences or a couple phrases in a new language, they're like, okay, you're trying. You're not just an obnoxious tourist.
I think the first ever German phrase I learned was from my brother, and it was something like Die linke Blinken and mein Kranken. That doesn't, let me restart that. My mouth got all muddled. Die linken Blinker and mein Krankenwagen ist kaputt, which means the left indicator on my ambulance is broken.
Oh, wow.
Which I think that would be an extremely specific case
Yes.
for me to use that. But no, yeah. So yeah, I think, you know, I've been on like Tinder and stuff like that, and everyone's profile says, I want to go traveling. But it's a mindset, isn't it? It's not, it is a decision that you need to make, and you can do it. You might have to make some sacrifices, not buying Xbox Series X's, for example, but you can do it, and you might have to sacrifice the 5 stars.
Yeah.
But get deep in there, get into the culture, get into the food, get into the language, and I think that can really help you as a person just grow and have that better knowledge. And it's great party chat as well.
Yeah, definitely. You come away with so many stories. And I think even most people also probably even beyond the money and time, just like are like, oh, maybe I don't have anyone to come with me. I think hostels are like another great way to overcome that fear, because you're never going to be fully traveling alone. If you go to a place like that, you're going to meet other people who are probably also solo traveling.
Yeah. And a big part of traveling is people. It's not just seeing the landscapes and that's great. But if you're going to travel, I think we as humans, you know, you want to know more about those people and how much they differ from us. And I find it amazing sometimes that I can look at a different country and a different set of people and be like, we're the same species, but they're so different. But that's amazing. You know, I think there's 2 ways you can go to. You can go to the xenophobic way, or you can go and be like, wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And how evolution has taken us all over the world, and we've each culture has found their own way of doing things, and I just think that's incredible.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest takeaways I think from travel, is just realizing like, yeah, we're all humans, we all live life in a very similar way, but also it's so different. And just realizing that there's no right way of living life, I think is another key realization that I had.
Exactly. You know, you can be kind of elitist about it, but at the end of the day, if it works for them, that's great. If they're happy, you know what I mean? I've been rambling for most of this, honestly, but it's been great chatting with you.
Yeah, you as well. No, I definitely love talking through all these topics related to travel.
Yeah, I had a few notes and we kind of blasted through them pretty quickly. And after that, I was just trying to think up things to say off the top of my head. But no, thank you very much for coming on. Best of luck with the book and the sales and everything. I definitely want to get my hands on it.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely up there on Amazon.
Yeah, because I think I followed you on Twitter like years ago before any of this.
Yeah.
And it's like, hang on, this person's kind of semi-famous now. What's going on here? Like, it's kind of odd. But I thought it'd be great to catch up, great to chat.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for reaching out.
No worries. Thank you for agreeing to be on this.
Yeah, good luck with the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. We'll see how that goes. As I say, I landed a job yesterday anyway, so it doesn't really matter in the end.
Yeah.
But no, I wanted to do this for a while. So that was a choice. It's not just traveling. I think you can think of that mindset and put it to anything you want. A lot of people want to go traveling, and you can make that choice. But whatever you want, just get yourself in that mindset. You know.
Yeah.
I wanted to start a podcast, and for so long I didn't. And I was just like, why don't I just do it? Just get on with it. What am I waiting for? So exactly. It's just that mindset, you know. And you're gonna have to make some sacrifices depending on what you're doing, but you know, if that's what you want, you've got to go for it in the end.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Excellent. So yeah, thank you very much.
You.
Have a great day. Have a great holiday, and hopefully speak soon.
Yeah, happy holidays. Bye.
You too. Take care. Bye bye. Next time, I chat to my friend Hayden Edwards, the guitarist of Nebula State. Usually I'd put the preview here, but some stuff has changed since we recorded the episode, so we're going to have to do a re-recording, and because of that, I don't have a preview to put here. But even so, it's going to be a blast, so stay tuned, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.